ideas of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, make us the hero warriors we aspire to become. May we fight successfully the great battle of the future that is to be born against the past that seeks to endure, so that the new things may manifest and we may be ready to receive them. Our Divine Mother says the manifestation of the supramental upon earth is no more a promise but a living fact, a reality. It is at work here, and one day will come when the most blind, the most unconscious, even the most unwilling shall be obliged to recognize them. With my blessing, says our Divine Mother. Words of Sri Aurobindo from the book Basis of Yoga. Topic in difficulty. Page 61, new stanza. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says it is a very serious difficulty in one's yoga, the absence of a central will, always superior to the waves of the Prakriti forces, always in touch with the Divine Mother, imposing its central aim and aspiration in the nature. That is because you have not yet learned to live in your central being. You have been accustomed to run with every wave of the force, no matter of what kind, that rushed upon you, and to identify yourself with it for the time being. It is one of the things that has to be unlearned. You must find your central being with the psychic as its base and live in it. And Lord Sri Aurobindo says, however hard the fight, the only thing is to fight it out now and here to the end. The trouble is that you have never fully faced and conquered the real obstacle. There is, in a very fundamental part of your nature, a strong formation of ego individuality, which has mixed in your spiritual aspiration a clinging element of pride and spiritual ambition. This formation has never consented to be broken up in order to give place to something more true and divine. Therefore, when the Mother has put her force upon you, or when you yourself have pulled the force upon you, this in you has always prevented it from doing its work in its own way. It has begun itself building according to the ideas of the mind or some demand of the ego, trying to make its own creation in its own way by its own strength, its own sadhana and its own tapasya. There has never been here any real surrender, any giving up of yourself freely and simply into the hands of the Divine Mother. And yet, that is the only way to succeed in supramental yoga. To be a yogi, a sannyasi, a tapasvi is not the object here. The object is transformation, and the transformation can only be done by a force infinitely greater than your own. It can be done only by truly being like a child in the hands of the Divine Mother. The object of transformation, let me repeat again, the object of transformation and the transformation can only be done by a force intimately greater than your own. It can only be done by being truly like a child in the hands of the Divine Mother. There is no reason why you should abandon hope of success in the yoga. The state of depression which you now feel is temporary, and it comes even upon the strongest sadhaks at one time or another, even often recurs. The only thing needed is to hold firm with the awakened part of the being, to reject all contrary suggestions, and to wait, opening yourself as much as you can to the true power, till the crisis or the change of which this depression is a stage is completed. The suggestions which come to your mind telling you that you are not fit and that you must go back to the ordinary life are promptings from a hostile source. Ideas of this kind must always be rejected as inventions of the lower nature, even if they are founded on appearance, which seem convincing to the ignorant mind. They are false because they exaggerate a passing moment and represent it as the decisive and definitive truth. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says there's only one truth in you on which you have to lay constant hold, the truth of your divine possibilities and the call of the higher light to your nature. If you hold to that always, or even if you are momentarily shaken from your hold, return constantly to it, it will justify itself in the end in spite of all difficulties, obstacles, and stumblings. All that resists will disappear in time with the progressive unfolding of your spiritual nature. What is needed is the conversion and surrender of the vital part. It must learn to demand only the highest truth and to forego all instance on the satisfaction of its inferior impulses and desires. It is this adhesion of the vital being that brings the full satisfaction and joy of the whole nature in spiritual life. When that is there, it will be impossible even to think of returning to the ordinary existence. Meanwhile, the mental will and the psychic aspiration must be your support. If you insist, the vital will finally yield and be converted and surrender. Fix upon your mind and heart the resolution to live for the divine truth and for that alone. Reject all that is contrary and incompatible with it and turn away from the lower desires. Aspire to open yourself to the divine power and to no other. Do this in all sincerity, and the present and living help you need will not fail you. The attitude you have taken is the right one. It is this feeling and attitude which helps you to overcome so rapidly the attacks that sometimes fall upon you and throw you out of the right consciousness. As you say, difficulties so taken become opportunities. The difficulty faced in the right spirit and conquered. One finds that an obstacle has disappeared, a first step forward has been taken. To question, to resist in some part of the being increases trouble and difficulties. That is why an unquestioning acceptance and unfailing obedience to the directions of the Guru was laid down as indispensable in the old Indian yogas. It was demanded not for the sake of the Guru, but for the sake of the Sishya. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says it is one thing to see things and quite another to let them enter into you. One has to experience many things, to see and observe, to bring them into the field of the consciousness and know what they are. But there is no reason why you should allow them to enter into you and possess you. It is only the divine or what comes from the divine that can be admitted to enter you. To say that all light is good is as if you said that all water is good, or even that all clear or transparent water is good. It would not be true. One must see what is the nature of the light, or where it comes from, or what is in it, before one can say that it is the true light. False lights exist and misleading lusters, lower lights too, that belong to the being's inferior reaches. One must therefore be on one's guard and distinguish. The true discrimination has to come by growth of the psychic being and a purified mind and experience. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the cry you heard was not in the physical heart, but in the emotional center. The breaking of the wall meant the breaking of the obstacle, or at least of some obstacles there between your inner and your outer being. Most people live in the ordinary, outer, ignorant personality, which does not easily open to the divine. But there is an inner being within them of which they do not know, which can easily open to the truth and the light. But there is a wall which divides them from it, a wall of obscurity and unconsciousness. When it breaks down, then there is a release. The feelings of calm, ananda, joy, which you had immediately afterwards were due to that release. The cry you heard was the cry of the vital part in you, overcome by the suddenness of the breaking of the wall and the opening. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the consciousness is usually imprisoned in the body, centralized in the brain and heart and navel centers of mental, emotional, sensational. When you feel it or something of it go up and takes its station above the head, that is the liberation of the imprisoned consciousness from the body formula. It is the mental in you that goes up there, gets into touch with something higher than the ordinary mind, and from there puts the higher mental will on the rest for transformation. The trembling and the heat come from a resistance, an absence of habituation in the body, and vital to this demand, to this liberation. When the mental consciousness can take its stand permanently or at will above like this, then this first liberation becomes accomplished, Siddha. From there, the mental being can open freely to the higher planes or to the cosmic existence, and this forces and can also act with a greater liberty and power on the lower nature. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the method of the divine manifestation is through calm and harmony, not through a catastrophic upheaval. The latter is a sign of a struggle, generally of conflicting vital forces, but at any rate a struggle on the inferior plane. You think too much of the adverse forces. That kind of preoccupation causes unnecessary struggle. Fix your mind on the positive side. Open to the mother's power. Concentrate on her protection. Call for the light, calm, and peace, and purity, and growth into the divine consciousness and knowledge. The idea of tests also is not a healthy idea and not to be pushed too far. Tests are applied not by the divine but by the forces of the lower planes, mental, vital, physical, and allowed by the divine because that is the part of the soul's training and helps it to know itself, its powers and limitations it has to outgrow. The mother is not testing you at every moment, but rather helping you at every moment to rise beyond the necessity of tests and difficulties which belongs to the inferior consciousness. To be always conscious of that help will be your best safeguard against all attacks, whether of the adverse powers or of your own lower nature. These are the words of our Divine Mother.